Thank you for joining Asia's best radio station.
Download latest podcasts of Carry On Harry Show on iTunes.
Now shake hands with celebrities on Singapore talk show Carry On Harry.
Inviting music composers, producers, artists on board on Carry On Harry Talk Show for connecting you to worldwide audience. Write to Harry Johal at carryonharry.com or visit www.carryonharry.com for more details.
Hi friends, welcome to yet another episode of Carry On Harry Show with your talk show host Harry Johal, and today I'm very much pleased and excited to invite my guest Dr. Philip DeLuca on our show to talk and discuss about his clinical experiences in the mental health field. And he's a seasoned and highly skilled therapist whose compassion and dedication to his clients is extraordinary. Well, Dr. Philip DeLuca has a special therapy called Untalk, which we are going to discuss today. So what is this Untalk and how Untalk can really help us to resolve the issues that are happening in our lives? So we're going to discover more with our guest today on the show, Carry On Harry. Hello. Hello, good evening, sir. Good evening, sir. This is Harry calling from Singapore.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, sir. How are you, first of all?
I'm doing good, thank you, sir. How are you doing over there?
I am perfectly fine. I'm very much excited because you are going to talk about something, which I am doing right now, that is talking, and you are the one who is saying not to talk. So it's going to be a little bit interesting to know like how you specialize in making people resolve the issues of their life by untalking. So really excited about it.
Yes, that's what I do. I help people not to talk and then they fix their problems. Isn't that contradictory?
Fantastic. Mr. Phil, you are a therapist. Tell us about your journey as a therapist. Like how did you, started becoming a therapist, and what sort of things do you resolve as a therapist in lives of people?
Well, I've been doing this 40 years, and when I got out of graduate school in 1977, I realized a lot of the communication approaches, which basically come down to express yourself, they were real popular then. Get in touch with your anger, be honest and open about how you feel, never go to bed mad at each other, or you're running from the problem. You might have heard some of those sayings. They've become kind of ingrained into the culture at this point. Mm-hmm. But what I discovered at the time was they were actually making situations worse. People were getting into more conflict. People were breaking up. And so I started getting real concerned. I started practicing it in my own life, too, and found out it was just chaos. So basically what I did was I started developing an alternative approach, and over 40 years I tweaked it so that it's there's no fat in it, there's no fluff, it's right to the point, it's easy for people to grasp. And what I did was I integrated holistic health. I started having some health problems, and then when I started looking at the science behind the health issues, I discovered it was kind of like the key that unlocked everything. I said, wow, this same mechanism that goes on in the body and causes ill health is the same mechanism that occurs when we get upset and causes all of these relationship and personal problems to occur. So, I put the two together and integrated them into one unified approach where people can fix their problems at the same time improve their health, because the both are very closely related.
Correct. Today you are working, as somebody who is, promoting under your brand as Untalk. What is this Untalk, and how Untalk really helps out people?
Well, basically what Untalk is, I take an alternative to talking problems out. So when you look at the science, if your listeners are aware of the fight-or-flight response, when I ask people what's the fight-or-flight response, most people say, well, we either go into a fight or a flight when we're feeling threatened. And that's accurate, but actually the science over the last 10 years especially, or 20, has shown these tremendous changes that go on in the body. So what I did was I identified once our fight or flight response kicks in, I identified 4 changes that occur within us and in our environment, our relationships around us, that occur like within 1 minute of a second. I mean, before you can snap your fingers, they've already occurred. It's that fast. And they're all detrimental. So I found a way to slow that process down for people and prevent or at least decrease the negative consequences that fight or flight response occurs. And so my untalk therapy basically says, when you're upset, get away and get calmer before you re-engage with the other person. Mm-hmm. Because what happens one of the changes that occurs is we have, for our focus here, let's talk about the brain. Mm-hmm. You know, we have the cerebral cortex, the front part of our brain. That's where our higher learning comes from. People know that as our thinking brain or a gray matter. Abstract learning, higher learning, language skills, empathy, love. And it separates us from the lower life forms. Now, right behind our ears, we have the amygdala, also known as the fight or flight response. Mm-hmm. I call it our lizard brain because it's the same thing we share with the lower life forms. As a matter of fact, there was a book came out in the 90s by Dr. Paul McLean, who had spent decades doing autopsies between us and the lower life forms like crocodiles. And he said we share the same fight or flight mechanism, the same brain that they share. He called it our O brain because that's almost primitive acting brain. So if you put your hand right behind your ear on each side, your fingers, that's where that's located. And right between the two of them, we have this, what's called our hypothalamus, which basically is a switching unit. Mm-hmm. So what happens, and it switches blood flow from the front brain to the back brain. Now this back brain, this fight or flight response, is no different than the animals out there. It's paranoid, it's bleak, it's dark, it's gloomy. It only sees things in terms of surviving at the moment. You're out to do me harm, and I have to protect myself and attack you back. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we call that our O brain because it's our most primitive acting brain. The front brain, he says, he called it our new brain because it's the most advanced part of our brain. And when we're calm, we're acting from our frontal thinking brain. And when we're upset, we're acting from our irrational, hostile, provocative attack brain. So what happens is, in between that is like a switching unit, the hypothalamus. If you have a railroad tracks and the train is coming down, they'll switch the tracks so the train goes into a storage track for a while, and then the main train passes, and then they switch it back, and that train that was just idling there, comes back on the main track. And that's what happens when we get upset. The body perceives a threat, and it starts activating our survival brain, this lizard brain, and blood flow, hypothalamus switches blood from the front brain to the back brain. And what happens then is that becomes active, and in extreme cases, the front brain loses up to 75% of the blood flow. So what does that mean? Well, the other day I fell asleep on my arm, and I woke up, and it was numb. Mm-hmm. I couldn't move it. So I said, I tried verbally, at least mentally, I said, move. It wouldn't move. There wasn't any blood flow. I couldn't feel anything. So I manually moved it and then started massaging it, and blood came back. Mm-hmm. And then I could move it through mental effort and thought. And that's what happens when we get upset. Blood flow gets redirected from our front brain to our back brain. Back brain takes over. Front brain actually shuts down, like that numbed limb. We can't use it. Mm-hmm. And once that occurs, remember I said there was 4 changes. That's change 1. Change 2 is this brain's now in control of us. We get volatile. This is a volatile brain. It's irrational. 1 and 1 equals 27, 16. We're all over the place. We get short-term oriented, so we only want to gratify this feeling at the moment. We can't think future consequences. And we also get oppositional. Now, when I looked up opposition in a dictionary, my dictionary has 3 meanings: conflict-seeking, taking an anti-position, quote, taking an anti-position, and provocative, seeking conflict. Okay, so we take an anti-position. Think about this. Somebody's about to stab us. We automatically, unthinkingly move out of the way. We defend ourselves. We counterattack. They move away. They come back towards us. So we defend and attack. That's all we can do when we're in this brain is defend and attack. We have no other card to play because we don't need it. So we get oppositional. We see things in terms of catastrophic, all or none, black or white, you always, you never. We see things with a very self-centered view. You against me, you're out to harm me, so I have to protect myself and get you back before you eat me, because that's what this brain sees it. It sees it as you're about to harm me, eat me, kill me, so I have to protect myself. So we get this catastrophic, all or none, black or white thinking. It's here and now. We have to be right in this brain. I mean, if survival's a mistake and you're wrong one time, you're already somebody's meal. So we have to be right. We have to control. We have to dominate the environment in order to get the upper hand over our perceived enemy. And we're not aware we're in the state, or if we are, we can't stop ourselves from saying and doing certain things. If you've ever been upset and heard this internal dialogue in your head going on, part of you saying, now stay calm, this is going to have bad consequences, and the other part saying, no, I want to act right now. Don't let them get away with that.
Correct.
That's the two parts of the brain actually talking to each other. And they have what's called lizard brain override, where the blood keeps rising so much that eventually it takes over. Your old brain, your lizard brain actually takes over your survival brain, and at that point, it hijacks us. And so people will talk about, when I get upset, I can see words coming out of my mouth, but I can't stop myself.
Correct.
It's like somebody's taking over my life, and I'm watching a film of my life.
Correct.
So that's called lizard brain hijack.
Correct.
And it's actually an accurate physiological response.
Correct.
So what?
Dr. Phil, normally sorry to interrupt you, normally there is a perception, that if we really talk out, it normally, ends up, resolving out the issues. But there are some cases, where we see that more we talk about an issue between two loved ones, the situation becomes even bad to worst. In order to, resolve an issue, what will be your recommendation as a therapist? Normally, how do you, make two parties, resolve an issue by untalking? How does the untalk really works out when anybody consults you as a therapist?
Well, it's very simple, actually. You get in touch with when this response has happened. People can feel their sinuses flush, their heart pumping hard, that's that fight or flight response, blood pressure rising, deep breathing. And normally that's when they say and do stuff that's really bad, because remember, that brain is geared towards hurting the other party, destruction, conflict. It's geared towards provoking conflict. So what I get to do is, what I help people to do is get them in touch with, get them to observe their body, and when they start feeling these physical reactions, initially get away and get calmer. I want you to go out of there. That's what I tell people. I want you to go out of there, go into another room, and start detoxing this hostile feelings you're feeling towards the other party. And get the brain to calm down, and then get the blood to recirculate back to your thinking, conflict-resolving brain. So that's basically what it does. Just get away. You feel this occurring, your heart's pumping hard. Before you say these things that's going to be destructive, get away, go to another room, close the door, go out of the house, go for a walk, whatever it takes. The reason I wanted to close the door is because I want you to let this survival brain know there's a barrier there. Stand down. You're not under attack. You're not going to be eaten by a bear or a T-Rex. Now, when you get calmer, put on some do things to get calmer. Calming music. Comedy is real good. Getting immersed in an activity. Those things will recirculate blood to the front of your brain, and you'll get calmer. And people know when they get calmer. People say, I can feel myself thinking clearly. My breath, my breathing has calmed down. Then go back out and re-engage the other party at that point. because at that point, that brain is a conflict-resolving brain. It's calm, it's logical, it's not all over the place, it's not accusatory, it's not bringing up stuff from the past that's 20 years old and irrelevant. Talk about it then. So conflict starts two ways. We go into this lizard brain and provoke them, or they go into lizard brain and pull us in. That's a really common situation.
Correct.
And what conventional... Yes, sir?
Correct. Dr. Phil, something was coming into my mind. There are two types of talk. One talk is, the one which goes in two brains. There's a conflict, and then there's a person within us who also tries to resolve the thing. So there's a continuous talk about, a certain issue which is, bothering us inside about another person. But then there's also a talk between two people who are having, a situation where, they are having a conflict between themselves. So what, according to you, is more dangerous? Is the self-talk more dangerous, or is the talk between two people that is more dangerous to happen, in that frame of mind?
Oh, much more dangerous, unless it's an acute crisis, like you're about to be run over by a car or something, is life and death. 99% of the time, this brain overreacts to perceived threat. Somebody takes your parking spot you've been waiting for, and we go into O brain, when we act the same way towards them as we would somebody's about to stab us. So what happens over time is this thing creates a tremendous drain on our health, because these chemicals are highly toxic to the body. And we get into what I call the dead zone. The dead zone is where there's no caring left. So what you have is, initially in a relationship, people are getting along, caring is rising. You have little spats, but you get over them, and you feel closer after them, as a matter of fact, a lot of times. Well, then you reach a place where recovery becomes increasingly incomplete, and you haven't gotten over argument number 5 when you hit with number 6. So at that point now, recovery, it starts affecting and draining relationships. Personal peace starts going. It affects a relationship primarily in 4 ways. Communication is increasingly chaotic and becomes a part of the problem. The more we talk, for instance, the more we talk about it, the worse we get along. Sex becomes a battleground, a ritual, non-existent. Caring and enjoyment drops. You stop laughing with them and you start laughing at them. And you get to the place where I call the dead zone. There's no caring left. It's drained all caring out. The conflict has drained all caring out of your relationship.
Correct.
And so basically the relationship's over at that point. Even if you fix the problems, it's like, I don't love you anymore, so I don't care if you get it fixed or not, because I'm out of here. So that dead zone is a bad place to get to, because if you're really in the dead zone, truly, then there's nothing you can do about it. You gotta just move on or live with a dead relationship. But a lot of times people are coming in where they're right at that point. So my approach was geared towards getting them to get out of that as quick as possible. And the first step has to be, I've learned, stop the conflict. You have to stop the conflict immediately, because it's just pounding away at their love and their sense of peace and even their health. And usually by the time people are seeking help and having problems, or looking ways to fix it, that caring has taken a tremendous battering, and there may not be many more arguments left before it's dead. So
Absolutely.
That's what I try to do. I try to teach them how to identify this place, come up with a way to stop it, detox those hostile, resentful feelings you have, exercise, calming music, we talked a little about that, and then re-engage the other party when you're in a constructive mode. Now, most of the time, many of the times, when it passes, people are like, there's no point even bringing it up. It was a nothing. We were going to argue over the way we planted the flowers. It doesn't matter. But the times that it does, that's the time to talk about it using your frontal brain. The goal I use with people is Aristotle. He said, quote, anybody can become angry, but to be angry at the right place, at the right time, to the right degree, in the right way, for the right purpose, that's not so easy. But that actually is the definition of good communication. This is not the right time to do it. We're in public. It's not the right way to do it. It's not to the right degree. This was a minor offense. Why nuke them? And for the right purpose. Here's the key part. Our survival brain's purpose is conflict, destruction. Our frontal brain, our thinking, our genius brain, that purpose is love, resolution, fixing things. It's long term. So when we discuss things from our survival brain, our purpose is not to resolve anything. That's secondary. Our primary resolve any issues is secondary. Our primary purpose is to vent this tremendous negative stuff we're feeling towards the other party. So it's geared towards destruction, and that's exactly what these conventional communication approaches do. They generate more conflict.
Is there
anybody that's tried that in a problem situation, they see that it doesn't help. And the more they talk about stuff, the more sensitive they get, the more it leads to arguments. And then after a while, they're at a place, we argue no matter what we do. If we talk about it, we get into an argument. If we don't talk about it, we still get into an argument. We're in a lose-lose situation. We're in this death spiral that's sucking us down to this black hole. No matter what we do, we can't stop it. It's like the bridge is out, and we can't turn off. The train engine. It's going off that bridge, and no matter what we do, nothing is changing it, and nothing is slowing it up.
Correct, Dr. Phil.
That's a really
is there any specific? Dr. Phil,
yes,
is there any specific way that we can reprogram that negative side of our brain into something more constructive and positive? Since, like you have mentioned, that we are conditioned to be thinking negative, or thinking about bad things happening to us, or thinking about developing a conflict with someone. Do you recommend any form of tools, any way of reprogramming that negative aspect of our brain, which ultimately leads into these kind of conflicts and argument?
Yes, and that's a great question, and I get that asked a lot. Actually, what I teach people, that's why I call it untalk and untherapy, because I teach people a skill. I teach them how to heal themselves. I don't hold great knowledge on how to heal them. They hold it. And all I'm doing is giving them information about this fight-or-flight response, which I gave you a little of. There's 4 pieces. I gave you 1 and a little more of 2. I give them information about how the body works, its impact on everything, our relationships, our internal state, even our health. And then I show them, like I showed you, how to identify the way to short-circuit this. Get in touch with when you're going into this fight-or-flight response, leave, and then get back when you're around them calmer. And what that does is it teaches them a skill. And eventually, they're going to get to the place, and not too far down the road, maybe weeks or a month, maybe a month or two, if they practice it hard, do it inconsistently, they're going to get a place where they can get up to what normally would have gotten them upset, and they would have, quote, lost it or attacked the other party or said things they would later regret. They can actually stay in their front genius brain, I call it your thinking brain, and stay calm and talk through the issues instead of hitting off this wall and bouncing off of it repeatedly. And so the issues in that case just keep recycling. But this way you're able to get through the wall, talk to the other party, from your conflict-resolving brain, not your conflict-seeking brain. And that sounds like a little thing, but for people that can do that, they're able to shut down arguments immediately and get on a much better plane very quickly. It doesn't sound like much, but it's a very powerful force that I've discovered and I use with people, and it has very quick and long-reaching effects.
Correct. So moving ahead, you have also recommended a term called love science. What is this love science? Because when I was reading through the notes of Untalk, I did come across that there's a toolbox which you have developed called love science. How does it really help out people?
I'm sorry, what? I missed the word. Love what?
Love science, the term which you are using in your therapy, what is it all about?
Love
science. I'm talking about love science.
Oh, love science. Oh, love science. Yes, I'm sorry. Well, this is exactly what I'm talking about. It's science-based. Here's the physiological changes. There's physical changes. There's perception changes. There's relationship changes. And then there's brain changes. There's, the science of neuroplasticity, which is the latest brain science, says the brain keeps growing throughout our life, and it adapts to our environment. So when we're in this chronic conflict stress situation, our survival brain expands and our thinking brain actually shrinks. And so now we get in this default setting where we're highly sensitive, we're very defensive, we're constantly attacking the other party, we have these constant preoccupation and negative thoughts floating around our head. So the love science says, hey, there's a science behind why this is happening, why you're communicating this way, why you're feeling this way, why your health is deteriorating. Here's the science, and I gave you a little piece of it, the fight-or-flight response. Actually, it's all based around that. And here's the solution based on the science. For instance, the express yourself, get your anger out. Well, science says that episodic anger outbursts increase the heart attack rate 500% within 2 hours of expressing that anger. And over long term, it increases your heart attack risk and stroke 20-fold and cancer risk 3,000%. So there are other things that the science says actually extinguishes these chemicals and calms the body down. Like you're throwing, basically the fight-or-flight response is an inflammation state. The body is inflamed. The last thing you want to do with flames is throw gasoline on it. What you want to do is throw some water on it to calm it down, put the fire out. So my approach with love science says, the science says this is what's occurring with us. And the science also says this is how you fix it. There are natural biological mechanisms that actually calm this fight-or-flight response down and get us back into a conflict-resolving way, such as music. They took 2 experiments, and they played 2 groups of people, and they played hard rock for one group and classical New Age for another. Then they took blood samples from both, and they found that the stress levels, the cortisol levels of the people listening to the classical New Age went down, and the ones listening to hard rock went up. So there you go. One threw gasoline on it, and the other one threw water on it. Then they asked them, how do you feel? The classical group said, we feel calmer, and the hard rock group said, we feel more aggressive. So there's a whole list of things like this that science says, hey, this will help you calm down. This will improve your health. I keep bringing up health, but the source of all health problems is inflammation in the body. Autoimmune, Alzheimer's, depression, they're tracing it all now to inflammation. The fight-or-flight response is an inflammation process. And what the conventional communication, express yourself approaches do is they say, get in touch with your anger. You have a right to it. Be honest and open about how you feel. Don't go to bed mad at each other. Well, that's the worst possible thing you can do. You're inflaming the body even more. And then what happens is they get these inconsistent solutions. Okay, so you're in touch with your anger, you're getting it out, your heart attack rate's going up 500%. Now, go to yoga class and calm down. All right, so they calm down. Then they come home, but you have rights. As soon as somebody looks at you the wrong way and you think they said something to you that you don't like, tell them what you think. So now you jack them back up. So they're like, well, make up your mind. Are we trying to get you jacked up, or are we trying to calm you down? And they it's inconsistent. It works at cross purposes, and people are in the crosshairs there, and they're just getting squeezed very tightly. So, this is a skill-based approach. It's based on science. There's no gobbledygook. There's no psycho-babble that's common with stuff. It's very solution-focused. Step 1, you do this, you see these results, this takes you to the next step, and bam, before you know it, you're in a good place.
Correct. Dr. Phil, let's say if people want to take, guidance from you, to resolve some issues or learn more about Untalk, what are the platforms where they can connect with you to seek this kind of a help?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that again?
What are the platforms where people can connect with you to get more help about, solving out their relationship issues or know more about Untalk?
Oh, okay. They could go to my website, www.letstalkmorelove.com. They could send me an email, which is DeLuca, DeLucasW@gmail.com. Any of those, they can contact me. I do video counseling, so I can see people anywhere and help them. And it's a very cost-effective approach because I don't hold the answers. They hold the answers, and I show them how to get the answers. So it's not like people have to see me every week. They come in, I give them some skills, they practice it, and then we get together again in a week or two or 3 or 4 or a month, however long it takes them to do it, and then they walk themselves through it. It's a very cost-effective approach.
Correct. I think we got some wonderful insights from you about how we can really resolve our issues by getting into the right frame of mind rather than getting into the conflict or aggravating the conflict by directly talking into it when we are not in that proper frame of mind. I think we can learn more about this Untalk, if we really want to resolve the issue. So I would recommend my listeners that do pay a visit to the official website of our guest, Dr. Philip DeLuca, on www.letstalkmore.com, and you can get a lot of help from him. More information will be floated on our official website, carryonharry.com. So any final message you would love to share with the listeners before we end today's talks with you?
Well, it's really not in your best interest to talk when you're upset. I know everything out there says, it's be honest and open. Don't go to bed mad at each other, but that's very destructive because people end up talking about it before they go to bed when they're upset, and then they don't sleep that night and maybe the next 2 or 3 nights. Absolutely. So I'd rather people not sleep together that night and be calmer in the morning, which happens when I work with people like this, and the next morning they say they come back and they're like, hey, I didn't want to get into it last night because it was destroying. It would have hurt us. And so what I was upset about was nothing. Or I just want to tell you that la 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 la. So that's basically it. Don't talk when you're upset. Work ways. Develop the skill to get calmer, and then talk about it. And then you'll talk about it very effectively. You won't cut them off. You won't use toxic words. You won't bring up past issues. You won't be looking at them with what's called the evil eye or the look. You won't be making hostile gestures towards them. Anyway, I'd be glad to come back and we can talk some more about some of the other changes that go on.
Sure, sir. You're most welcome anytime. You're most welcome to our studio anytime. Whenever you have got something important which can really help out people sitting at far end, it will be more than a pleasure for us. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for being in tune with Best Talk Show. Carry on Harry with entertainment editor Harry Johal on Bala Bala Radio, inviting music composers, producers, artists on board on Carry On Harry Talk Show for connecting you to worldwide audience. Write to Harry Johal at carryonharry.com or visit www.carryonharry.com for more details.